materials. When you want to make your personal library, or you want to gather the kids' writing to contribute to a classroom library. So these are my techniques for putting together books. Okay, here's some examples of some books that I've bound. So I got this. This is kind of like a rare book, and I managed to make a copy of it for my personal library. And so I bound it using simple methods, right, that I'm going to show you here. And so this is also like a hard to find book. It's kind of very difficult, but when I get a hold of one, I make a copy and just kind of like, not for sale or anything, just so I can have a copy and kind of put it together like that. So say you've identified kind of a set of papers you want to bind, and you just put them all together and organize them how you like them. And what I like to do is I like to put a loose leaf page at the ends and in between any sections if I want to kind of subdivide my collection, or it can all be just one section with these at the end right here. And then get a heavier cardstock. This is cardstock, so it's a little bit thick, slightly thicker paper, not too thick. And fortunately, these are all the same size. Sometimes I work with different sizes, and you gotta cut kind of things to the proper size, and then just kind of put everything together into this kind of collection here that you have. And next thing you want to do, you want to make sure everything lines up. So you want to make sure that everything is kind of put together, so that, you know, you want to slam it down and make sure all the edges are kind of straight and square. Okay, next you're going to want to gather some basic things. One of the things you're going to need to work with is a PVA glue. And wood glues are typically PVA glues. This is kind of a plastic type of glue that adheres to porous surfaces. Now you can find expensive kind of archival quality PVA glues, but I just grab Gorilla Glue as one of my favorites. But make sure you grab wood glue that's for porous surfaces. Now this doesn't work, this type of binding does not work with plastic or other surfaces that do not stick. So you want to work with paper, you know, and get you some wood glue, some PVA glue. And then I also like to use a brayer to smooth out any edges. This is just a little, you know, simple paint scraper. It's a plastic one, so it's like, it doesn't tear up the paper or anything. And you want to have some clamps, because eventually you're going to clamp down the work onto these, in between these wood boards. These wood boards are kind of like pretty square, and they're pretty smooth and dry, so they work really well. And then you also need some clips to kind of hold things together as you prepare to glue your edge. And another thing you're going to need is some wax paper. So this is kind of wax paper to put along the edge to make sure that the glue doesn't seep over and basically glue stuff that you don't want to. It's a good idea to have a wet cloth, like just with paper, to kind of clean up any wood mess. All right. So first thing we're going to do, now that we've kind of scrunched together the paper, we're going to clamp down our book to get ready for glue. Okay, I've stamped down my book, and I've defined the edge that I'm going to glue. I'm going to be gluing this edge, and this is being held down. So this is all lined up, ready for glue. Okay, so you got your book all lined up, and you've got the edge that you want to glue, and you want to press the boards down, but you want to actually leave a little space right there, so it's not completely flush to the edge. You know, it's not square to the edge, and you want to have your wax paper sandwiched in between the wood. Otherwise you could glue the paper book to the wood board, and the wax acts like the wax paper acts like a buffer to spread out what you're doing. So this is actually, you know, kind of like lined up, and so now you're ready to glue up. Okay, now you got your wood glue and your edge, and you just need to kind of pour out a little bit. It's always a good idea to have a wet cloth with wet paper, with a paper towel with some water in case you need to clean up. And then get yourself a brush and do the edges very carefully. You don't want to do too much, but you do want to do this about 3 times and let it dry for an hour or 2 in between. So you don't want to glom on all at once, but it's better to do about 3 layers and just be very kind of conscious of how you're putting it on, and then build up your glue size. Okay, I've already glued this once, and the most important thing to do at this point is remember to wash your brush in between applications, because it will set up on you and ruin your brush. So you just water and a little bit of soap is fine, and then just clean up your brush, and then wait a couple of hours until let this dry completely until you do the next coat. And we're gonna go for about 3 coats is fine. You can always talk to your cat while you're waiting, right, Ripley? What's going on? While you're waiting for your edges to dry, just take a manila folder, just a plain, this is a plain manila folder, and what you want to do is you want to crease the edges. Like the bottom of a manila folder, they have a kind of a natural crease that's designed into the folder, and you can actually adjust it to the length of your book edge. So it should be about the width of your book edge. And what you want to do is you're going to want to use this to line up to the edge of your binding, and you're going to glue this on as a final step. But what I found is that the manila folders will end up either being too short or too long on one side or the other, or both. So what you should do is actually just trim it so that it has an even edge like this to sit with the edge of the harder cover. So basically it's just a protection for the binding and to hold everything together. And that's ready, and we're just waiting for the whole thing to dry. It's okay to take your time to wait on this to dry. Sometimes I even leave it overnight in between gluings. So, but this is my 3rd one, and we're gonna wait one more time to glue this edge in there. And there you have it. It's done. So it's next day, it's all dried up. And usually what I do at this point is I try to find a graphic to kind of help me orient as to where the front of the book is. But this is kind of a cool way to kind of keep everything neat and tidy, and to kind of form a collection of books that, you know, maybe you want to self-make with kids. It's you know, okay, it's pretty good for, you know, handmade desktop purposes. This tends to work out pretty good for a do-it-yourselfer. All right, hope you enjoyed this DIY.